Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending our regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen's meeting tonight, Thursday, January 20th, 2022. Call our meeting to order, and I ask that we please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Our next section of this agenda, if there are any additions or changes to the agenda. Hearing none. Our next would be our public comment. This section of the agenda is reserved for people in attendance who wish to briefly address the board. The board requests that comments be limited to 3 minutes or less. People wishing to comment should type comment in your and your name in the chat box, and you will be recognized.
Chairman Larson, our first public comment is from Angela Corrington.
Okay. Go ahead, Angela.
Okay, good evening, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. My comments this evening are in regard to the housing survey that was posted on the Hebron Town website. My concerns are the following. It was available to anyone, not just to Hebron residents, which meant anyone, regardless of where they live, was able to take the survey. Additionally, it could be taken multiple times. So you could take it over and over and over again. On the flip side, it was only available on the Hebron Town website, which leaves out a significant part of our population. Those people who don't have internet, those who were not aware of the survey, and those who do not know how to navigate a survey. And I think some of that was evidenced by the fact that only 1% of those over 80 took the survey. I'd venture to say that everyone from code took the survey at least once. Perhaps we need a townwide mailing with the survey and just a few questions. That might be something that could be in order. In my opinion, the survey should not be used as it was for those reasons. I hope that you'll take some of this into consideration as we move forward with the Affordable Housing Initiative in Hebron. Thank you.
Thank you. We will definitely take that under advisement. I will say that what you stated are also facts that we found out. So thank you. Thank you for your concerns.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.
Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. Moving on. Are good to know. Andy?
Hi, Dan Larson, Chairman and Board of Selectmen members. So tonight, under the Good to Know, the Business Spotlight for Public Service announcements, we have a certificate of appreciation for the CERT team, which is Community Emergency Response Team. There is a proclamation which Donna has been so kindly to put up. The Town of Hebron certificate of recognition to the CERT team for supporting COVID testing and distribution of test kits and face masks to the residents of Hebron. This was a task that was not taken lightly. There was some confusion on the state level and when they were to be received and when were they supposed to be distributed, along with the amounts that we were supposed to receive. So we dealt with the information that we had at the time. We dealt with it, and we had to make decisions based on the best information we had. And hopefully and luckily, we prevailed to the best we could to our citizens of Hebron. That wasn't an easy task. And our emergency management director, along with the CERT people that assisted, along with our Hebron police and our fire department and the town hall staff to organize and get this done, most of the feedback that we got back was it was professionally handled, moved through quickly, and was well run. So these are uncharted waters, and I think it's very appropriate the Board of Selectmen recognize these people that gave up their weekend on a cold December, January, winter to come out and volunteer their time. So I think it's appropriate we recognize those efforts that assisted all the residents in the community of Hebron.
I totally agree. And I also want to say, I've seen the CERT people in action, not only, of course, for this, but for other lost people calls where they've assisted the fire department and the state police all hours of the evening and morning trying to find lost people up in Gay City or wherever. It's an amazing group of dedicated people who have shown their worth and shown their mettle and helped our residents in our community multiple times. So again, I agree with everything you said, and my hat goes off to those individuals.
Dan, I'd like to second you on that, if it's okay to say something.
Yes, please.
Well, I was out there with them, and it couldn't have been done without them. And since they're volunteers, you have to give them all the praise in the world. It was freezing, it was raining all day, it was nonstop all day. It took some patience and tolerance because people were coming back 2 and 3 times, and you were trying to identify who was trying to game the system a little bit there. And they did that very diplomatically. And like you say, Dan, it's amazing that people will volunteer to come out and contribute like that. And a lot of that goes to Paul's leadership. And it's a great organization. They're very professional. This is the least we could do for them.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, please.
I want to make sure we acknowledge RAM and Acting Principal Scott Leslie for allowing us to use that facility. That has worked out very well for the community, and they don't always have to just loan that to us, but he's been more than willing every time.
And again, it's a collaboration amongst so many different groups and entities within our town that makes this thing so successful. What I find kind of disturbing is the fact that, information that you think you have turns out to be wrong or erroneous, and these poor people have had to and yourself also, and your staff have basically had to punt numerous times trying to pull things together. And, it's just not an easy task. So many moving parts and all parts that are out of your control. That's the worst thing. It's amazing, but thankfully it got done. Who knows where the next thing is going to be, but again, thank you, thank our town staff, and thank the CERT team, our police. It's so many entities that make this a successful event. So thank you. Anybody else? Okay, moving on. Town managers report, please.
Okay, thank you once again. So we're in budget mode. I think that's pretty much known, but I want to express that. So first on the town manager's report, we're still working on possibly getting some more test kits. We're scheduled to get more tomorrow, but I'll tap on that later on in my report. As I said, working on the budgets with the department heads, the CIP, with the schools this week and next week to try to start finalizing at least the CIP, and then we're going to get into the department budgets that are due the end of this week. We had our first organizational Maple Fest meeting, was at the library. Maple Fest is scheduled for March 19th and the 20th, which is a Saturday and Sunday, third weekend in March. And we met with the sugar houses and the entities, some of the entities that are going to participate. So that went well. The word's out. We're trying to line up vendors. So if you know anybody that wants to participate, let us know. Nonprofits, let us know. Don't wait till the last minute, because other people might be doing something that you guys want to do. And once they have somebody selling an item, that's pretty much it. You have to regroup. So we're hoping that's going to be successful. Hopefully the weather's going to be good. So we had to cancel that. So we're looking forward. That's a big town event if we have nice weather. We recently had the Region 8 Insurance Consortium with the towns and the school districts. As of today, we're looking at a negative 4% moving forward on our insurance, which is for the first time in the 26 plus years I've been here. So we continue to do well with that, and hopefully that's going to hold true, but we're bearing the fruits of our efforts. It was a 10-year effort to get that in there to go self-insured, and that's what we're looking at if we don't have any crazy claims from now till March where we have to finalize that. So that's great news for, Ram's the big dog in the house, but then there's, the elementary schools and then the towns. So I'm always very proud to report that. That was a tough thing to get through, and we did it. So we're bearing the fruits of that. In the conversations at January 20th with the tax office, the reports on the collections are we're doing very well as always. So thank you to the Hebron residents that are very diligent in getting their payments in. We don't foresee any problems, or we don't think that we're going to be off our mark as of report from them today. Another good news. We've been working with the Public Building Committee regarding the school roofs, library roof, and other projects, including CIP items, to try to get those numbers in the budget for moving forward. That's been very busy for my department and the building committee. Also, this week, we met with Code, and they're going to be looking to move forward and come back to the Board of Selectmen, give an update where they are and what they're planning on moving forward. Also, Danny, you were a part of this. We met with AHM, and their budget will be later on in this agenda. I've been meeting with the Parks and Rec and the Commission on them moving forward in a certain direction, along with the new director. So that went well. And also, Danny, you probably already have heard, I met with the Peters House Subcommittee, and we finalized a draft on things that we think are appropriate with the monies we have within the budget now to expedite and move forward, and then plan accordingly moving on. So it's been a busy week. And last but not least, I think we put it in the packet, under correspondence is the Brownfields Grant.
Yes.
So we reported back in June 24th, 2021, that the town was earmarked for a Brownfields grant. It was round 13 Brownsfield Municipal Grant application. It's called the Airline Trail site, which is the 501 Church Street, the old Crosby gas station that's been sitting dormant for a long, long time. So they earmarked the money back then when we received it for the Tertian Mill, and said if we were to come up with a developer/owner and come up with a plan, the money would be there as long as it was still available. So we received a letter addressed to me on January 6th, 2021, stating that congratulations, Department of Economic and Community Development is pleased to award the town of Hebron a granting amount of $650,490. That came to fruition with partnering with Airline Cycles out of East Hampton / Colchester. they're interested in purchasing the property and developing it along with the town and the state working together to clean this property up. And what that would be an enhancement to the airline trail with his bike shop, supposedly a pavilion, possibly some bathrooms, sandwich shop, so on and so forth. It's spelled out in the letter. I don't want to read it in its entirety, but once again, it shows that, town staff, past and present, have worked very hard over the years and continue to fight to get these grant monies. And I'm very proud as the town manager to come to you once again and bring you amounts that are well over $500,000. Martin Road was just under $3 million. We continue to secure these grants and work with the state to try to make Hebron a better place. And hopefully the Board of Selectmen appreciates the efforts. I think we're doing well, and we can continue to do well or do better, but we're out there fighting the fight. So I think I know it's happy for me to report stuff like this to the Board of Selectmen and to the taxpayers of Hebron. That's a lot of money, and that should go a long way with turning that pretty much Brownfields / eyesore into something that's productive and put it back on the tax rolls. And that's it for the town manager's report.
I just want to say again, thank you. I don't think people realize the amount of time and effort that goes into so many of these projects. And it shows, the professionalism shows in the fact that we have been so successful over the years in getting so many of these grants and these dollars. Again, my hat goes off to all of the entities that piece all of these little bits together to bring this to fruition. Whether or not people understand, Parham's gas station was a gas station that was actually active up until, I'm going to say, 70s, 80s. It was in that ballpark because I can remember buying gas there. And then literally the property fell on disrepair. It was found that there was gas leakage in the tanks. Certain remediation efforts were done back in the day when the sewers went through, but it's basically stayed and stagnated as a property. And I think it's great for the environment. It's great for the state. It's great for the town that this finally get cleaned up. The pollution at its worst form, oil and fossil fuel byproducts in the ground. So this is a great news. And I think that type of business on that location is fantastic. It fits. So again, thank you.
I don't want to slight anybody, so I want to thank the Brownfield Task Force for all their hard work and sticking with it. We submitted multiple applications and finally with success, but it wasn't without multiple defeats. So they hung with us. We have very good expertise in the town on boards and commissions, and it probably wouldn't have happened without their help, but we were successful finally, and I don't want to, not recognize them.
Thank you. Okay, our next section would be our old business. And our first thing is to approve a call for a moderator and an alternate moderator for the February 10th, 2022 special town meeting. Did you want to say anything, Andy, before I read the resolution?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think it's pretty cut and dry. Approve the call and appoint the moderators, and it spells it out what it's about.
Okay. And this is going to be in person, correct? At one
Yes.
point, we were talking about virtual, but this is going to be in person.
Yes, with the back and forth with the town attorney and how we could do it and the roll call and with the way the charter is written about possible somebody requesting a paper ballot, we felt this would probably be the best way to complete what we needed to get done per the charter. And the easiest way. We'll try to do our best to keep everybody safe. But there was issues if we were trying to do it the other way. I'd just leave it at that.
Okay.
Is there
So
an
the
option
rest,
to do it on Zoom?
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Is there an option for people to do it on Zoom, or everybody has to be there?
We looked into that, Mark, and we were gonna try to do it on Zoom, but the charter also has a provision if somebody were to request a paper ballot, then we would not be able to do that on Zoom. That would have to be like either a drive-through or, some other method. So after looking at all the options and talking on several occasions with the town attorney, we decided with all the information we finally received that this would probably be the best way to conduct the business the way we're set up to do a town meeting. So this is what we're suggesting.
Okay,
Okay, the resolution is be it resolved that the Hebron Board of Selectmen approve the call for the February 10th, 2022 special town meeting to be scheduled for 7 PM as attached. And we will do the notice. Be it further resolved that the moderator for the meeting will be Scott Kaufman and the alternate moderator for the meeting will be Kevin Connors. So I will read the legal notice if people desire.
I think you should. That'll explain why we're doing the meeting.
Okay. The electors and voters of the town of Hebron are hereby given notice and warned that a special town meeting will be convened on Thursday, February 10th, 2022 at 7 PM in the community room at the Douglas Library of Hebron, 22 Main Street, Hebron, Connecticut, to consider and act upon the following resolutions. 1, in accordance with the Hebron Town Charter, Section 303B, to accept Connecticut Department of Transportation administered design program and federal local bridge program grants in the total amount of $2,493,300 or amount to be adjusted by the grant programs to cover the total project costs less the town's required share. 2, in accordance with the Hebron Town Charter, Section 303B, to accept the Connecticut State Library Construction Grant for the Douglas Library of Hebron roof project in the amount of $232,666. 3, in accordance with Hebron Town Charter, Section 304B and 905C. 3, to approve a supplemental appropriation for the Douglas Library of Hebron roof project with funding to come from A, $85,000 from the unassigned fund balance to supplement already approved CIP funding of $339,667 for the town of Hebron share of the Douglas Library roof project and $232,666 from the Connecticut State Library Division of Library Development Library Construction Grant Program. Appropriate COVID-19 precautions will be taken during the meeting and face masks will be required at all times when in the building. Dated at Hebron, Connecticut, this 20th day of January 2022. Hebron Board of Selectmen, Daniel Larson, Chair, Gail B. Richmond, Vice Chairman, Peter Casper, Mark Rivera, and Tiffany V. Thaley. Any questions or comments on the resolution or on the legal notice? Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Gail? You're on mute.
Of course, I'm on mute. Yeah, Gail Richmond, aye.
Thank you. Mark?
Mark Rivera, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
And Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely, aye.
And myself, aye. Thank you. Next, we have any other old business, I believe. Okay, hearing none, moving on to new business. We have the approval of the fiscal year 2022-2023 AHM Youth and Family Services Budget. I'll read the motion, then we can open it up for discussion. And I'll read the top section first. Attached is the proposed AHM Youth and Family Services fiscal year 2022-23 proposed budget recommended by the AHM Board of Directors. Hebron's share will be $281,349, which includes the town, Hebron Board of Education, and the Ram Board of Education levies. The motion is move that the Hebron Board of Selectmen approve Hebron's share of the fiscal year 2022-2023 AHM Youth and Family Services budget in the amount of $281,349 as presented, and commit to including this amount in the town of Hebron operating budget for the fiscal year of 2022-2023. So opening it up for discussion. If
Mr.
not,
Chairman,
yes, please.
I think we are extremely fortunate to have such a well-run, well-organized agency in town that services us and the neighboring towns. If we had to go out and purchase these services for our children and families, we could do it nowhere near that. Having worked in some human services fields, I know that these things are very costly, and we're very fortunate all these years to have such an agency.
Thank you. I was going to just mention a few things, and Andy, hopefully you will chime in also. We attended a virtual meeting, I want to say it was last week. Actually, it was last week. I'm looking at the calendar. Some of the things that are of extreme concern, I can't go any less than extreme concern, are the mental health situations that they are finding coming to them more and more. And a lot of it has to do with COVID-19 stress. There's not only children, there's families that they're trying to deal due to effects of the pandemic, things that they had never dreamed of. And they are in the process of actually putting on more clinical staff to help to handle just a burgeoning caseload of mental health issues. Mark, I'm going to ask you to also chime in too, because you've seen it at RAM. And these are the people that have been handling, this workload of issues. I don't know if Mark.
Yeah, as you stated, Dan, the need will never exceed the resources that we have. So every therapist, counselor, social worker that you could have is immensely valuable. So we could talk kind of in the clouds about it, but I'll give you a specific example about how AHM helps in a practical sense. They trained all of us and any citizen in Hebron who wanted to be able to be certified to deliver Narcan. Now, that is a tangible good. It's not some, it's just not some praise. That's something that was really needed. They saw that. They're in touch with things that are going on in the community. And that's where I got my Narcan dispensers from in our training. They trained the cops, teachers, anybody who wanted to go. So that's just one example of the good they do. And most of you probably didn't even know that.
Thank you. Andy?
Yeah, there's a couple things that the public should know. So it looks like a lot of money from the town of Hebron due to the levy percentage, but AHM still does a great job. Their total expenses are like $1.6 million, almost $1.7 million. They do a lot of that raising with fundraisers, donations, grants. They pretty much make up half of their budget, if not more. Even in these COVID times, they lost their concert, which had people coming from all over the country. They still did great with their golf tournament, but they had to cancel like the dinner at Gina Marie's, which
Oh, God, yeah.
consistently makes them a lot of money from the people that realize the contribution that AHM makes. There's a waiting list for people in crisis. I think they told us 18 people on a waiting list. Can you imagine if you're in crisis and you get put on a waiting list? I mean, that's just horrific. That's like calling a suicide hotline and being put on hold. That's unacceptable. You have some great people over there servicing the communities. And as Selectman Richmond said, for what we get and what it does for the community, this is the best bang for the money that we're spending. It would be a lot more if we had to go out and do it as a town entity versus a partnership with AHM. So they are looking to hire a new person to try to cut back on that waiting list with what's going on in the world with COVID and everything else. It's warranted. I think Dan, you can back me up. I think the vote was unanimous. It's just got to bring it to the town entities, boards of finance, boards of selectmen, but the people that represent the towns were all in agreement. Great organization. I can't praise them enough. They're a class act. And the fact that they still raise that kind of money, even during a pandemic, should be commended.
Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Gail?
Gail Richmond, aye.
Mark?
Mark Rivera, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely, aye.
And myself, aye. Thank you. Our next is going to hand this over to Gail.
Okay, to my fellow board members, every year in January, we come up with our time to evaluate our town manager. So in your packet for tonight's meeting, you got the form, which we used last year. And for reference, as you complete it, you got the job description. What I would like to ask each of you to do is to fill out the evaluation form and somehow email it to me or get it to me any way you want. But if Tiffany and I could have those back within the week, it would give us time to compile the results. And because ideally, we should have executive session at our next meeting. But we also need input from the department heads. And in this time of not being in person with things, Donna, I'm going to ask you, would it be possible if I give you a cover letter for you to send this form out to the department heads? Oh,
Sure, I can do that, Gail. Yes.
yeah, thanks a lot, Donna.
We-
I'll give you that and with the date. It seems to
We
be
have
the
a-
most efficient way, and then they can get it back to me by dropping it off to you or by emailing it. Because we need to
Okay.
preserve.
We have a
certainly-
staff meeting. We have a staff meeting on Monday morning, so I can just talk about it with them and then get it out to them on Monday.
Okay, all
Thank you.
right. Thanks, Donna. And so I just want to emphasize again that the next meeting, we will have the results for you, and we will have our executive session and determine Andy's status. And Andy will have his goals for us for that one that what happened during this past year, and anything he thinks he wants to work on for the next year.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. Our next thing is the HAMR softball field project update. And this is something I know Tiffany had asked that this get put on the agenda. And so here it is. I'll turn it over to Tiffany and or the Parks and Rec people.
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Chairman, I could just jump in. I'll make the introduction. And then Tiffany, if she wants to chime in or take over, that's fine with me. So HAMR softball field project update. The Parks Recreation Director, Craig Bryan, is along here with us tonight with John Camtosi. I'm not sure I said that right.
Close enough.
Thank you. Thank you. I get a mulligan. The president of the softball will be in attendance in the meeting to provide the selectmen with an update on the HAMR softball field project at Veterans Memorial Park. So, Tiffany, did you want to go in before Craig or John jump in?
No, I think the only thing I wanted to say was I think I wanted to add this to the agenda because I think it's an important project the community should be aware of. I believe this is our only softball field in the town of Hebron, and it's shared with not only Hammer, but also the Ram teams as well. So it'd be great to hear from Craig on how these plans are progressing and what the field's going to look like in the future. So I'm happy to defer to Craig and go from there.
Thank you. So Craig, if you're available, you and John can go through your slides and give the town and the Board of Selectmen an update. Yes, Craig, I see Craig is on here, but we don't hear you, Craig. I know your mic doesn't look muted, but if you're with us.
Wonderful world of technology.
Can you guys hear me?
Now we can.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So John and I have spoken a handful of times now about this project. This was something when I first started, he came to me to talk about. He had presented this to the Rec Commission, I believe in the spring, who had approved the concept with the understanding that Hammer would be funding the project and would be the lead in the construction of the project. Essentially the upgrades that they're looking for is adding a permanent outfield fence, adding a scorer's booth, adding in bullpens next to the dugouts, relocating the batting cage closer to the field, relocating the scoreboard closer to the field in the outfield, and adding bleachers. All these upgrades essentially will put this field on par with the baseball fields that we have in town. Not only that, it gives us the chance to host softball tournaments. They need the permanent fence for tournaments, which brings some, economic potential by bringing in other towns, other teams to to the fields. One of the big things too is it's really showing a commitment to youth sports, and not just youth sports for girls, and trying to increase the participation in girls sports, which I think have been down just about everywhere. And kudos to John and his organization for what they do, especially for the youth girls sports. So we're happy to be a part of that. The other thing is, like I said, it just brings us on par with the other fields in town. It's if you look at those designs, it's a good looking field. It makes more sense, the design, where everything's located. It's closer to the field. It's better access. Adding bleachers, even in COVID times, helps with spectators, people being there. On our side, like I said, for the Rec Commission, we're on board. We just, with the understanding that they are funding the project, and that they keep in constant communication with us. Once John and his organization has the information for contractors for the jobs, we'll be putting in the applications with the building official to move that forward. I know John was in a Conservation Commission meeting, and I know they put in an application as well. So I'm not sure if that was approved or is a pending approval, which didn't sound like it wasn't going to be approved. So that's status on our end. I know for them, and John could touch on this a little more, but they still have some fundraising to do. They have a $2,500 grant that they would like to spend before, or they have to spend before June, which getting this moving will definitely help. And I believe, John, you got 10,000 out of what you think that the project is around 30,000, and with more fundraising, which we can give you ideas and ways to help with that. We can build certain sections with the money that they have as the funds come in. So I don't know, John, if you have much more to add to that.
Thank you, Craig. No, that was a very well put together and summed it up very well. The only thing, I would like to add is, Hammer is committed to making this happen. But, if there are any resources that the town could provide, they would certainly be welcomed, whether it's funds, but it doesn't just have to be that. If it's the use of town laborers or the use of town vendors that might get us better prices on things, or anything else you guys can think of, because ultimately this will benefit the Hebron community for many, many years to come. Thank you. And any questions?
I was going to say, questions from anyone?
Andy, is it feasible to provide that kind of support, or could we look into that? Not a monetary side, but is it feasible to look into using some of those town resources to help this group?
I'm going to make a general statement on behalf of the Board of Selectmen. As the town manager of Hebron, I'll try to work with you in all aspects that you just mentioned, whether it be financial, labor, or purchasing, to get this done. It's a benefit to the town and the community. You have my full support.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
If I may ask, Dan Larson, what does HAMR stand for?
So it's an acronym, Hebron, Andover, Marlboro Regional, and we just nicknamed it Hammer. Many years ago, before Hammer was an organization, but more of a team, we wanted to use the name RAM, and we got some pushback from the school district. So we rearranged the letters a little bit, and that's how Hammer was formed.
Okay.
Like that.
Are you getting support from the other two towns as well, or have you approached them at all on anything?
So we have projects in the works at the other two towns as well. The West Road facility, we're looking to do some improvements in the infield, and we have been working on the Andover field. And as an organization, we have members from all three towns that kind of pitch in and help us raise funds and try and improve facilities at all the towns.
And then my last question, for tournament, are you going to be able to run tournaments with a single field, or how does that kind of thing work?
The more fields, the better. Certain times of the year, we do have use of the Ram field also, but that field is difficult to use for a number of reasons. During school, we have to work around the high school, middle school, JV teams. Also, the town does not maintain that field. It's not prepped for us, so that's stuff that we have to do ourselves because the school also doesn't do that. So yes, it is difficult with one field. So the more fields, the better.
Okay.
So Dan, sometimes, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Sometimes in these tournaments, because I've driven to a million of them, sometimes you're going through multiple towns to do a tournament, so it would put us in a position to participate in potential multi-town tournaments, because it's not unusual for us. Me, I'm doing soccer now, but we'll go to multiple towns for the same tournament on the same weekend, just because of the field issues. But the opportunity to participate and promote that, I think, is great. And since I'm rambling on, if I could just comment, Mr. Chairman, about Hammer. I actually was in the Hammer organization and coached for a number of years, and was back in the day when John mentioned we tried to call it RAM. And I applaud what you're doing and how this organization has grown, because to see these young women, become young women in terms of coaching them when they were, little kids all the way through. And then the beauty of Hammer is you also get to enjoy coaching. In my case, my daughter, as she was into her end of her high school, in that high school age too, when she wouldn't really have any other outlet. So it's a wonderful organization. Having the right facilities is significant, and we fought for years in battle to try to get the right facilities. I remember when, back in the day, and John, maybe you'll laugh a little bit at this, we had practice on that field, and the baseball field was flooded. So the baseball coach came over and said, "We need to use your field for practice." So the girls finished practicing as we should have, but the idea that we can promote girls sports for girls and youth sports, and then put it at the same level with facilities and get the respect that it deserves and support these young women. I am a huge fan, and I applaud you for what you're doing, and look forward to hearing more about the fundraising.
Great, thank you, Peter.
Dan, I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, please.
Pete, since you're such a supporter of it, I was going to be anyway, but this even makes me want to be a supporter more, since you have personal experience with it. John, a couple of questions, and Selectmen can comment too. The town is going to have use of the field also, right?
Yeah, I mean, that ultimately it's the town's field, and they grant us use to use it as an organization.
So if our citizens are going to be able to use it, why wouldn't we contribute to helping make the field?
That would be wonderful.
I can't see why you wouldn't support that. Somebody's helping you with a project you should probably do anyway, and contributing some funds to it to enhance the quality of life of Hebron. We should probably be involved in partnering with this.
This is the kind of, Mark, you're spot on, because I remember we used to play the adult leagues there. I mean, again, I'm out of it now, but we used to play adult leagues there. When my daughter was playing for the Rams, she sometimes would come over, the JV would be over there, depending on what the varsity was doing at the time. And so absolutely, you think of the money the town is coming into, I would imagine that should be something that's on the list that can benefit the community and clearly be under at least consideration and discussion. So I think that's a great point, Mark.
It's also heavily used by the Ram teams. The middle school and JV team practice there and play games there daily throughout the spring.
Oh.
And being a former women's fast pitch softball coach at Eastern, it was difficult to find fields that were of the same quality as boys' fields. And women's fast pitch softball is really something else. I mean, I'm a little prejudiced, but I could see it used as that. So, I'm in complete support of this. I think we ought to keep our fervor here to see what we can to help this get done, help John and whoever else is involved in this. Thanks. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, everybody, for the comments.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I know you're just wrapping this up and we have to move on, but
Go ahead.
the way to keep this on as old business or something, some way to, so we don't, I think Mark's right, so we don't lose sight of this. Not just acknowledge it, but support it and understand the progress and what's going on. And again, not be every 2 weeks, but I'd like to somehow make sure we don't lose sight of this as the weeks and months progress. So there's a consideration to keep this on as old business, or at least maybe following up at the appropriate time. I would like to suggest that.
I don't see a problem. Okay, beautiful.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please, Andy.
great statement by Selectman Casper, but I'll continue to work on this. As we're putting the budget together, there might be some resources that we can apply to, along with everything that was requested, whether it be labor, funding, and better pricing on some of the products. I'll continue to work on this, and hopefully we'll come to a completed project.
Perfect. Thank you. Craig, did you have anything else you wanted to add, or?
No, I'm willing to work with John however we can and discuss this more with Andy and Peter and the Rec Commission moving forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
I guess our next is our draft agenda for the February 3rd, 2022. So as always, if people have anything they want to wish to get brought or added to the agenda or whatever, just contact, Don and Andy so that can get put on.
Mr.
Does
Chairman,
anything else? Yes, please. Yes.
we, as I mentioned earlier, we should add potential executive session
Session.
regarding
Okay.
Andy's evaluation.
Okay. So make sure that gets added on to that.
Yes, and hopefully we'll have all the information to go through with that, but at least it'll be on as potential.
Okay, and that would be February, come on, look at the calendar. February 3rd is our next meeting, so.
Correct.
Okay, beautiful. Our next section is our consent agenda. And these are items that are considered to be routine in nature, which the board may or may not need to discuss individually and may be voted on as a group. Any board member who wishes to discuss a particular item in this section may request the chair to remove it for later discussion and a separate vote if necessary. And I think we're just going to do it separately just because. So our first vote would be for approval of minutes of December 2nd, 2021, the regular meeting. And I believe these were already amended, if I'm not mistaken, and these are showing the corrections. And then the only other item that I saw on this, and I think it's just a typo, is on the top of page 4, number 3. It's talking about the pollinator. Okay. Item 3, it says allow plan heads. I think that's plant heads. If someone could correct me if I'm wrong.
I think there's a letter missing there.
I think so too. And other than that, that was the only thing I saw. Did anybody have anything else with that minutes? Blah.
The corrections that are on that, Mr. Chairman, are the ones that I pointed out last time. And
Correct.
so it reads correct now. So I think it's good.
Okay, so hearing that, all in favor of accepting the Thursday, December 2nd, 2021 regular Board of Selectmen minutes as amended and mentioned. Gail,
Gail Richmond, I.
Mark,
Mark Rivera, aye.
Tiffany,
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Peter,
Peter Casper, aye.
and myself, aye. Okay, our next is our January 6th, 2022 regular meeting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, those, I believe, just got sent out to the board tonight. You may want to table those. I know some of the selectmen that get the hard packets did not have those, so if you didn't take the
Okay.
time to get them in your email today, you wouldn't have had a chance to peruse those. I'll leave it up to the board.
What's your flavor?
I would rather hold them over, Mr. Chairman. I know they came in my email, but I did not have time to read them.
Okay. Okay. I was gonna say, the only thing that I noticed was 9F. It should be HAMR softball field, and it got put in as hammer. But so that correction could be noticed or what have you, and then we'll vote on that next time. And then our last would be the tax refunds as listed. And I guess they're going to be on the board. Oh, okay. So the tax refunds as listed. So what's your flavor with that? Gail?
Gail Richmond, I.
Mark?
Mark Rivera, aye.
Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
And myself, aye. Okay. Our next thing would be our liaison reports. And we do need to discuss that at some point, how we want to proceed with these liaison, yeah.
Assignments?
Appointment. Thank you. A mind is a terrible thing, so I decided not to get one. No. Some days get like this, other days get worse. It's been awful cold out this last week. So at any rate, going across, Gail.
Okay, the Hebron Board of Ed, I have nothing to report. For the senior center, I'm very pleased to say that on Monday, I will be joining Sharon and a couple other people in interviewing for the social worker, a position that's been vacant since the last one resigned for another position, and one is definitely needed. So I'm happy about that. In the library, tomorrow they're going to be showing the movie The Power of the Dog, and the week after will be Don't Look Up. Both are prominent movies from the last several months, so please, 1 o'clock in the library for free. And then the Census Bureau has some resources for distance learning, which anyone can go through their library and take advantage of. And that is it right now.
Thank you. Mark?
The main thing of note is they've started the process for interviews for superintendent. That's going to be a difficult position to fill. Ram women's basketball and Rams boys basketball are both undefeated at this point. I don't think I can ever remember that in my 16 years here as a Hebron police officer. I went to work at a game the other night, and it's exciting. All the new board members have started. The new chairman's taken over. And everybody seems to be really happy about the way everything's run and just moving along with business, no controversies. That's all I have to say.
Perfect. Thank you. Tiffany?
My report's pretty quick. The Open Space Land Acquisition Committee decided to cancel their January meeting, so I don't have anything to add there. I would like to say, if it's appropriate, Mr. Chairman, the seat that I filled on the board acted as liaison to the Economic Development Commission and the Green Committee. I'm happy to fill in on those roles because I see we don't have anybody for those two. I can do so for the time being until we decide that we want to have that larger conversation about how to approach liaisons moving forward, if the board is okay with that.
I have no issues. I think that's fine.
Right. That's all I have.
Anybody? Peter?
Nothing from the Board of Finance. I did attend the Parks and Rec Commission, had a special meeting specific to the budget preparation, and obviously working closely with Andy, but just a couple of things. They went through the three funds, Fund 1, Fund 4, and Fund 15, the cell tower, and just went through some of the things that they're looking at there, and I won't get into the specifics of that, but just some dialogue around the programs, some of the pressure on the prep decreases in terms of it being such a big revenue driver, and sort of thinking about when the right time is to start talking about revenue growth. So there's a lot of dialogue around that, and obviously representative of the COVID challenges as they continue, and then also did spend a little time on the capital budget in terms of areas that they had interest in continuing to work with the town on, and associated with the skate park and the repair and some playscape issues, things like that. And so it was a very interesting meeting, and obviously some good things that that department is involved with. And obviously you heard one example, obviously what Craig was on earlier in terms of potential support of the fields over at Vets. But that's it. So just the initial stages of the budget, and I did attend that to learn a little bit more about where their focus is, and I'm sure Andy will have more comments on that as the time as it becomes more appropriate. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Andy?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As far as the WPCA goes, I'm waiting for a report from Kevin Kelly, who's the administrator, but the gentleman that is in charge is doing well. He's over his COVID stint. They're back working. Things are moving forward, weather permitting, but I see them out there working, and I will get an actual report on the progress, and I'll send it out via email.
Good.
Perfect. Thank you. And myself, he already mentioned Peter's house, the Historic Properties Commission. They are working diligently with moving that project forward, trying to get the first 4 so it will be occupiable. And it is gorgeous. If you haven't been in there, get a hold of anybody in the committee. They'd love to show you. Fire department did hold elections, and Bill Shapport was put in as the president of the corporation. And I lost my note as for the other individual. So I apologize, and I will get that information out. Other than that, that's all I think I have. So with that, we'll go back to public comment again. Again, limited to 3 minutes or less. And if you do want to make any comment, please type in the chat box.
There's nobody there right now, so I think you're all set.
Perfect. Okay. With that, I think we'll continue the meeting, go on for another hour.
Hour and a half.
Okay, good.
So, Mr. Chairman, when you mentioned public comment, I was just thinking about the survey. Is that on the agenda for us to talk about, or is that out of our purview at this point?
Andy, please.
So if the Board of Selectmen remembers, we hired a consultant to work with the planner, and we put a committee together. They're compiling the data. They now put that up on the website. Once they come up with what they're doing, they recognize multiple people took it. They recognized there was people from out of town. It was the way they ran it. They'll come to the Board of Selectmen and give a full presentation on why they did what they did, how they calculated the results, and feel that the survey for what they wanted out of it would be appropriate. They understand they have IP addresses. There's multiple people in the houses that wanted to fill out the survey, but if you get 10 from one, that they recognize that as well. So they're willing to speak to that. That woman's comments were well noted, and we'll get those back to the committee and the consultant and say these are concerns. I know Chairman Larson was quick to point that out earlier on when that survey was out. So we brought that to the town planner immediately, and they assured us on what they're looking to take out of that survey. They will express to the town and the board on the results. So that should be coming. I think they've got a schedule, and I think halfway through they'll be coming in and saying, this is where we are, this is what we found, this is what the survey told us, and they'll answer questions back and forth about the questions that came up tonight and some of the other ones we received via email.
Thanks, Ernie.
You're welcome.
Yeah, take a look at the survey. I actually got a hard copy. I asked for it, and I think everybody can get one, or it's there for you at the town hall.
Up on the-
Yeah. So, but there are, reading it, there are some things that seem to contradict themselves. This kind of, as I say, picking it apart a little bit. There is still information, good information to be garnered from it, but you really need to kind of review the things to digest it. The other thing, just as a reminder, the certificates and all that is at the town hall Dory has, for us to sign. And then hopefully people realize, that your packets are there also to pick up. So that way you have an actual hard copy to go over the meetings with. I at one point tried to do it on a laptop, and it just didn't work. It just doesn't. Hard paper, sadly, is the best way to go, even though we are killing trees. Okay. I will be quiet. Gail?
It is 8:08, and I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
I'll second.
Second it.
All
Okay.
in favor?
Uh,
Aye.
stay